Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lesson self-analysis. The topic practical exercises. We continue with that topic practical exercises. I'm reading the text and then we will see the elaboration later. Spiritual practice is subjective. You must go introvert and discover the self within you. You may seek guidance from a spiritual master, but take up his preaching on its own merits. Do not allow the life and personality of a guru to interfere with his teaching. His life and teaching must be treated separately. Do not mix them up. To live an ideal life is one thing, and to be able to explain the way to live that life is quite another. Everybody tries to reason, but few know the science of reasoning. People commit the grave blunder of mixing the personality of a teacher with his teaching. They transfer the personal charm of God without merit to his teaching and become enslaved by him. The pursuit of enlightenment does not envisage your enslavement to personalities and a blind following of their deeds and dogmas. You can attain the supreme state by delving deep into your personality layers and recognizing the divine core within. But the order of the day is that self-anointed preachers thrust their beliefs on ignorant people and bring about spiritual pauperism. When religious teaching is thus forced upon people, they, particularly the youth, reject it and take the opposite direction. Thus, none realizes that the truth lies within oneself and fails to pursue it subjectively. Two men were traveling in a cabin in a railway train. One was a wealthy merchant, the other a thief. The merchant was carrying a lot of money with him, wads of currency notes. The thief knew it. In fact, he had booked his berth in the same compartment only to steal the money. The thief waited for the merchant to retire. To his surprise, the merchant openly removed the notes out of his bag and started counting them. The embarrassed thief left the compartment to go to the washroom. After he returned, the merchant went out, took his own time to wash and change. Meanwhile, the thief got busy and searched everywhere for the money. He could not find it. He knew for certain that the merchant did not carry it with him. How could it have disappeared? He could not sleep the whole night, while the merchant slept peacefully. The next morning they greeted each other. The thief could not contain himself any longer. He confessed his malicious intention to the merchant, and in admiration for his ingenuity, inquired, "Sir, where did you keep that money?" The merchant smiled and reached for the packet under the thief's pillow. This is the story of the human race. Everyone searches for bliss all over, except where it is, within oneself. So the need is to go within, rehabilitate the inner personality. The human mechanism faces constant challenges in the world. The trial and tribulation, worry and anxiety, stress and strain of life. You need to pull out of this onslaught for an hour or so every day to regenerate your mind and intellect. Like a ship needs dry docking. A ship sailing in the high seas becomes corroded. It needs periodical overhaul. So do your equipments require constant attention and correction to reach the final destination of life. For 60 to 90 minutes every morning, you must study scriptural literature, reflect upon it, contemplate on the truths therein, be consistent in your application. You will find your intellect getting clearer, free from doubt and indecision, your mind becoming purer, free from agitation and sorrow. Follow this practice daily. You cannot afford to neglect it. Does not your room need cleaning every day? Does not your body require to be bathed? So do your mind and intellect need constant rehabilitation. Scriptural study and reflection no doubt strengthens the intellect to prevent the mind from straying into likes and dislikes. Your mind keeps doing what it likes to do and avoiding what it dislikes. To live at the mercy of likes and dislikes is not healthy living. It would turn out detrimental to you. Your intellect must therefore control your activities. But the problem is the intellect is not available when the action is executed. After the action is completed, you realize you have acted impulsively. There are many activities performed by you which you yourself condemn as wrong. Have you not regretted at times your own actions? Then why do you do things which you realize later as wrongful? That is because your intellect was not available to you at that time. You have acted mechanically, impulsively. Therefore, the intellect has to be alert and available at the time of executing an action. This can be achieved by the practice of introspection. Introspection is a process of self-observation to be practiced every night before you retire. It involves the recollection of your experiences during the day. Try and remember every experience you have gone through in a sequence from the time of rising to the moment of introspecting. In your initial attempts, you may not remember the details of what you have done. But with repeated practice, you will recollect each and every activity. This exercise should not take you more than 5 to 6 minutes. While doing so, do not analyze or criticize your actions. You are only to be aware of them. Any form of involvement in the merit or demerit of the action would break the trend of introspection. Moreover, it may develop cynicism and frustration. When you remember an action over and over again, you become aware of it. And constant recollection of daily actions would render your intellect alert. The exercise of introspection is akin to ball practice in the game of tennis. That means practicing strokes against a wall. A line is drawn on the wall at the same height as a regular net in a tennis court. The player plays his shots against the wall to gain proficiency in the game, a practice which helps him later in the tournaments. Likewise, introspection helps you become aware of your life's activities, and your intellect becomes available before the action to guide it in the proper direction. Thus, spiritual study and reflection help you develop a strong intellect and a pure mind, while introspection enables your intellect to be alert. Together, they render your actions more objective, meaningful, purposeful. You get nearer and nearer the core of your personality. With such stability and objectivity, delve deeper into your personality. What you are looking for in life is bliss and bliss and bliss, nothing less. You search for it in vain in the outside world through your body, mind, and intellect. All bliss lies within you. Look for it here. You will find it. You will be absolutely fulfilled, enlightened. Now, the practical exercises in the lesson self-analysis. Two exercises he is talking about. One that has to be done at the beginning of the day. Another is that you end the day with. One that has to be done at the beginning of the day. The second one you do at the end of the day. The beginning of the day is with reflection. The end of the day is with introspection. Your life's activities is sandwiched between these two disciplines of reflection and introspection. If you were to do that, what happens is you will become more objective and you would be able to go deeper into your own self better if you do these two disciplines continuously. Reflection, he says, strengthens the intellect. Introspection makes the existing intellect available. Reflection strengthens your intellect. Introspection makes your existing intellect available. The existing intellect becomes available by awareness, by becoming more and more aware. How does this awareness comes? Awareness is nothing but a strong, powerful remembrance. That's what awareness is all about. Awareness means remembrance, a very strong, powerful remembrance. And you would be able to remember only when you have done this discipline of knowing it, this is what you have been doing every day. Then only remembrance happens. We'll try to elaborate both reflection and introspection. First is to say, start the day with reflection and end the day with introspection. Second is, the intellect is strengthened through reflection. Existing intellect is available through introspection. Introspection is not a process of analysis. Reflection is a process of analysis. That is the fundamental difference between the two. Introspection is not an analytical process. In introspection, no thinking, no analysis, no reasoning is involved. That is introspection. A non-critical, non-judgmental, non-analytical view of your day is called introspection. As you are reading or listening, it may look very easy. Yeah? But I tell you, even reflection is easy. Introspection is that much difficult. Reflection is easy. You can keep listening and you can keep reading books after books after books and keep yourself entertained. Reflection is easy. Introspection is not. Introspection is not at all easy. Because the tendency of the mind is to pick up an event and start worrying about it, thinking about it, analyzing it and everything. So what is introspection? Introspection is a non-analytical view, just an awareness of what you have been doing the day. That's what introspection is all about. Reflection is exactly the opposite of introspection. Please understand. In reflection, you are not analyzing anything about yourself. In reflection, what are you analyzing? The knowledge. So in reflection, you analyze Vedanta, the knowledge, the subject, the concepts. What mind is, what intellect is what you reflect upon. When it comes to analysis, analysis is done in relation to the Shastras. When it comes to yourself, you just be aware. And what does the and what do? We do exactly the opposite. Whole day you sit and analyze and analyze and analyze about your own self. Shastras, you only by heart memorize and repeat. That is why, though there is so much of knowing, transformation as such doesn't happen a lot. Because when it comes to your own self, you don't analyze, you only be aware. The analysis and reflection and reasoning and all that is done in relation to the Shastras. 2 hours you will sit and analyze about your own self, thinking that it is going to bring about an only if I know what I am doing, only if I am aware of what I am doing, only if I am clear about what I am doing, all big words. At the end of it, you become more critical, you become very cynical, you become that much frustrated only. We were observed, more and more a person gains knowledge, more and more he becomes critical about everything. Knowledge which is supposed to be making you more mature, more aware, more acceptable, where you are able to accept things around you non-critically. The very knowledge you gain more and more makes you more irritated and frustrated and critical. Self-analysis is not a critical analysis about one's own self. We don't analyze the other at all. That is established already. We don't analyze the other. We assess the other and we do not analyze the other. That is already established very clearly. So we are not getting into that discussion again. Turkey and the ant and all that we saw, and we have very clearly established that we assess and we do not analyze or criticize the other. Sir, okay. Then what do we do about one's own self? Turn introvert. And what is turning introvert means? You become aware of your actions and you analyze what the Shastras have said. But what does the person do? The person just memorizes and by hearts and takes what Shastras have said for granted and does a constant critical analysis about one's own self. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? I just want to check whether I am doing the right thing or not. I just want to know whether I am doing the right thing or not. Vedanta laughs at this approach of doing the right thing. Why it laughs at this approach of doing the right thing? Because there is no such thing as doing the right thing. Carefully follow now the analysis. Even when one is corrected of one's mistake by another, supposing I come and correct you, assume that I don't correct you at all. In fact, I really don't interfere in anybody's. Om Sahana Bhavatu Nakda, I speak. The moment I close the book, after that, I really don't talk to anybody, anything. Even if anybody comes and says anything, I'll say, you are right. What is there to? You are right. Even when one is corrected of one's mistake by your own self or another, have you ever observed? There is no certainty that the corrected view is the truth. It is very difficult to understand. That is why Vedanta recommends understanding and compassion, not correction. Because of what? Even when you correct the mistake, there is no certainty that the corrected view is the truth. There is no certainty to it. There is no perfectionism in it. There cannot be a completeness to it. For one mistake can be easily replaced by another mistake. For some people, everything seems to be right. For some people, everything seems to be wrong. Yeah. So this correction, this knowledge, when you truly look at life, it's so funny. It's so funny on what basis we arrive at these kind of. It's so funny that on what basis we arrive at these kind of conclusions. Therefore, analysis and correction has no. Therefore, analysis and correction has no relevance at all. You may correct, but on what basis the view that you have is correct? You may say this is a wrong thing to do. You may say that this is the wrong thing to do. On what basis that your view becomes correct? And everybody believes that their view is absolutely correct, and they don't need any correction. This correction is such an ego trip. It's an endless process. Either you want to correct yourself or you want to correct the other. It is such an ego trip where you can go on and on and on endlessly and nothing will change at the end. Everything will remain. Everything remains exactly the same. Even when you try to correct and when the other person appears to be corrected, Please understand. That person has a hidden agenda. Something they want to please you, they pretend that as though they have accepted your view and they have stood corrected. For what is correction? What is correction? What is correction? Correction is a recognition that you don't need any correction. You are full already. You are complete already. That is correction. There's no such thing called correction in Vedanta. Vedanta says you are full. You are full already. You are perfect already. It is not that the imperfect is going to become perfect. Perfect you are already. It means what? You need to become aware of something. Therefore, knowledge always equals awareness. Therefore, we say knowledge equals awareness. Are you able to follow the derivation? Therefore, we say knowledge equals awareness. For it is not the imperfect is going to become. For it is not the imperfect is going to become perfect. It is a recognition. What is the recognition? That perfect you are already. Anything other than that is opinions. Anything other than this is opinions. And opinion becomes correct when it produces an instant result. Your opinion seems to be correct when it produces an instant result, a quick result. And Vedanta doesn't appear to be correct because it doesn't produce any instant result. It doesn't produce any quick result. Therefore, what is the conclusion? The conclusion is you do not criticize or analyze the other. If you do not criticize or analyze the other, the same rule applies to you also. So you don't criticize and analyze about your own self. Then what do? Become aware. Simply saying become aware. How do you become aware? Breathe in and breathe out for a half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, you will become aware. Close your eyes and do meditation, you will become aware. How would you become aware? Awareness means awareness of your thoughts and words and actions. Awareness means a detached view, an objective view of your thoughts, words, and action. That's what awareness is. A detached observation about your own thoughts, about your own words, about your own actions is called awareness. Detached way of looking at your own thoughts and words and actions, because in that detached view, in that state of detachment, you see yourself more clearly. You see yourself more clearly. Today, you are not able to see yourself clearly because you already have a conditioned view about your own self. Either you have a conditioned view about yourself, or the person whom you revere or respect gives a view about yourself. Either way, you are conditioned. Somebody whom you respect. Sir, my husband says I am a really useless person. What do you think? I said, if you think your husband is wise, why are you asking me? If you think I am wise, I am not going to sit and talk about your husband comment on on you, because according to me, your husband is equally useless. Now, what difference does it? What difference does it? Are you able to follow? Either you have a view about yourself, or you carry a view about yourself through somebody whom you associate and respect. Self-analysis is a detached knowing about one's own self. Awareness means a detached understanding about one's own self. How do you do that? 2 practices. Are you okay till now? How do you do that? 2 practices. One is introspection and another one is reflection. Analysis, which is reflection, I'll explain first. What is reflection? Reflection is a understanding. Reflection is a method by which you revisit your understanding again and again. That is reflection. As you are listening to the class, you develop an understanding. As you are listening, you get an understanding. That's why you are continuing to listen. Supposing as I am talking, I don't know, for the last 20-30 minutes I am talking. If not a word is understood, you will switch off and walk out. So you are continuing because some understanding is happening. Now, what is reflection? Reflection is the ability to go over this understanding again, is reflection. And what is introspection? Introspection is becoming aware of your own self. So, reflection strengthens the intellect. Introspection makes the existing intellect available. Reflection strengthens the intellect. And if you have to strengthen the intellect, you can't have a random topic. You can't have a motivational talk on one topic for half an hour, 1 hour, 1 day. You can't have a random topic. You can't have a random, random talks like these people do nowadays. Because nowadays, it is all random topics and 45 minutes, 1 hour talks only. Just to take up something and talk for 45 minutes and 1 hour, and the whole crowd goes. So motivated, huh? I'm not criticizing. I'm saying how this approach doesn't work. Reflection has to be a systematic, methodic development of thought. That is reflection. Not just randomly listening to topics. Not just randomly listening to random listening na YouTube madri adu. You see one video based on some analytical process, it suggests another video. You watch that video for 2-3 minutes, and then in some random process, it will suggest another video. And then suddenly you realize, my God, YouTube seems to know you more than Google, and YouTube seems to know you more than anything else. Huh? Reflection doesn't happen randomly like this. You cannot reflect random like this. Reflection has to be done over a a development of, it has to be over a subject where the thought is developed from one into the other, and the subtlety goes on increasing. As you move into the text, the subtlety increases, because your intellect gets strengthened only when you are reflecting on the subtlety. Reflection is an exercise for the intellect to stretch a little bit. Reflection is an exercise of the intellect to penetrate a little bit. It means the subject matter has to be something subtle, where something is left for you to explore. If all are said very clearly, where there is nothing left for you to explore, you will leave the classroom saying, oh, it's so simple, it's so simple, it's so simple. Knowledge was made very simple. Half an hour you'll forget. Half an hour you'll forget everything, and the mind goes back to its already conditioned ways of existence only. So in reflection, knowledge has to be systematic, and knowledge has to have the subtlety that exercises your intellect. Are you able to follow? That's why in knowledge, some gaps will be left. Some gaps will be left in the knowledge where you have to fill in those, you have to fill it in. Sir, நீங்க சொல்றது ரொம்ப நல்லா புரியுது சார்னா நான் கேப்பே விடுறது இல்ல. Each and every அக்ஷரா I am trying to explain றதுனால it looks very சாமிஜி சொல்றதை விட நீங்க சொல்றது ரொம்ப இன்னும் தெளிவா இருக்கு. தெளிவாலாம் கிடையாது. அவர் நிறைய கேப் விடுறாரு இன்டெலெக்ட ஸ்ட்ரென்தன் பண்றதுக்கு. நான் கேப்பே விடுறது இல்ல. ஸோ ஈச் அண்ட் எவ்ரி கமா ஃபுல் ஸ்டாப் முதற்கொண்டு ஐ கீப் டூ தட் இட் இல்லையா? இது வந்து the baby food மாதிரி இது. Where you don't have to do anything. Yeah, your tongue need not do anything, your teeth need not do anything, your digestive system need not do anything. எல்லாம் போட்டு அப்படியே just swallow. It's like a baby food, and baby food is always very easy to swallow, very palatable. But transformation will not. Transformation as such wouldn't happen a lot, because for transformation to happen, the intellect has to be exercised. And where the intellect is exercised, in two methods it is exercised. The first method is through reflection. Are you okay till now about reflection? Then I'll come to introspection. This is what the methodology of reflection, strengthening your intellect, where something is left for you to explore, for intellect grows in that exploration. Then comes the discipline of introspection, which you have to do at the end of the day. First thing in introspection is the time limit. First thing in introspection, very critical in introspection, is the time. It shouldn't exceed 5, maximum 6 minutes. Even when he says maximum 6 minutes, that is because you would have even forgotten that you are introspecting. You would have gotten involved in something that you did, and you forgot that you are, and you will forget that you are introspecting. After 20 minutes only you will realize that you are I'm supposed to introspect. I'm not supposed to analyze. Or halfway through, you will fall off to sleep. Blessed you are if you can fall off to sleep halfway through introspection, because that is much better. Congratulate yourself. You are really blessed if you can fall off to sleep while you are introspecting, because at least you are not turning into at least you are not critical. At least you are not being critical. So the first important thing about reflection, the first important thing about introspection is the time. Maximum 6 minutes. Second is the process, the time. Second one about introspection is the process. What is the process of introspection? The process of introspection is not a mental reliving of the day. It is a mental recollection of the day. Again, I repeat. Mental reliving is what we do anyway all the time, which is detrimental and dangerous. And you don't need somebody to come and say, do that again, because anyway you are. So what is the difference between the recollection and reliving? Introspection is not a mental reliving. Introspection is a mental recollection. Recollection as in how you would see your day as a movie. How you would see your day as a movie. என்ன இருக்காது அதுல background music இருக்காது அவ்வளவுதான். Just it may be a silent movie. Just it may be watching it may be like watching like a silent movie. Just go through the a recollection of the day's events. Initially it would be like very gross obvious events. I woke up, brushed my teeth, went to had breakfast, went to work. It would be as gross as this. Continue. In a few more days, you will suddenly become aware of something more. Don't stop. Continue. Few more days, you will become much more aware. And this awareness is very critical, is very important. Because in awareness, you wouldn't do certain things. In awareness, you wouldn't do certain things. What is opposite of awareness? Regret is the opposite of awareness. You do and you regret about what you did. You do and you regret about it. Why did you do it? This is called impulsive. This is called being impulsive. So awareness, introspection is a discipline by which you wouldn't become impulsive. Awareness is a discipline by which you wouldn't become. If you start from today, at the end of the 4th month, at the end of the 5th month, you can see that you are comparatively you will become less impulsive. What does this impulsive means? We have seen this analysis many a times. I'm repeating it again. Intellect available after the action. Intellect available at the end of the action. Intellect available somewhere in the middle of the action. intellect available before the action. We have seen these 4 stages. Ideal stage is the intellect to be available after the action. Ideally, the intellect to be available before the action is the ideal. And invariably, intellect is available after. After the action, intellect becoming available will prevent you from doing it the next time, no, sir. How many times your intellect was available after the action? And how many times you continue to do how many times you continue to do the same action? It means what? Intellect available after the action and all doesn't seem to be of much help. Why? Because you become this impulsive way is what you become. Therefore, what is the other way? To bring in this awareness. And how do you bring in this awareness? By this practice called introspection. And what is introspection? A constant recollection. What is the law? The law is this. When you remember an action over and over and over again, you become aware of it. That's what introspection makes your existing intellect available. Again, I repeat. When you remember an action over and over, again and again, you become aware of it. In awareness, that which you are not supposed to do wouldn't happen naturally, effortlessly. Again, I repeat. In awareness, that which you should not do happens effortlessly. No analysis, no reasoning, no nothing. You, even before, at the first ray of anger that is manifesting, you can catch it. Intellect says, is this what supposed to do? Immediately in that awareness, the mind behaves. Mind rules where there is no awareness. That is why mind doesn't like monitoring. Mind doesn't like monitoring. Mind doesn't like observation. Mind will not like all that. And everybody wants to observe the mind, look at the mind. How is it possible? It will come back with greater frustration only. For mind doesn't like it. Example, the child. He gives this example all the time, no? You see a child playing in the room. In one corner of the room, the child is playing. You just sit in that room, keep looking at the child. You are not saying anything. You are not commenting anything. You are not saying anything. You are just looking at the child. At the 5th minute, the child will come to you and say, what will the child come and tell you at the 5th minute? Why are you looking at me? For that looking is very suffocating. That looking is very frustrating because mind cannot observe, mind cannot stand the intellect observation. Mind likes involvement. So what the mind will do, somehow it will convince the intellect also to analyze and be critical and make the intellect also get involved. As the mind, so what the mind will do, it will convince you so much that you will also start analyzing, you will also start thinking, you will also be critical. I tell you, it's so tiring listening to people self-analysis about themselves. And why they will do it with me only, I don't know. Why can't they do it by themselves? And they will do it with me only. And I also have to sit half an hour. What I also keep listening. After a while, I am fast asleep, not even knowing what is. Why this why this obsession with this analysis? It is not correction. It is the mind convince you to get involved. Are you able to follow till now? Exactly the opposite of this is introspection. What is introspection? A non-judgmental awareness, and in that non-judgmental awareness, the mind stops. The mind stops. It means even before you execute an action, the intellect becomes, even before you execute an action, the intellect becomes available. These are the two practical exercises called reflection and introspection. For knowledge to be perfect, remember this, for knowledge to be perfect, the subject matter that the knowledge dealing with has to be perfect. Then only you can have a perfect knowledge. If the subject matter which the knowledge dealing with in itself is a changing, if the subject itself is a changing subject, you cannot have a perfect knowledge. That is where all worldly knowledges are bound to be imperfect. Why? Because the very subject matter that it is inquiring is changing and changing. You can't say, I wouldn't use the word imperfect also. I would use the word changing. Means you can never come to an absolute conclusion about anything. You can never come to an absolute conclusive conclusion about anything as far as the world is concerned. That is why they say, according to me, all worldly knowledge says, according to me, in my opinion, what I think is, these are all worldly knowledges where there is no possibility of that to be complete. Why? Because the very subject of knowledge, or you can't say subject of knowledge, you have to say object of knowledge. Yeah? The very object of knowledge is temporary, changing. Therefore, when the very object of the knowledge is temporary and changing, the knowledge also would be temporary and changing. Therefore, in the world, you cannot have a complete knowledge, a perfect knowledge. Neither you can have anything perfect in the world. Vedanta says, when the subject matter is perfect, when the object of inquiry, when the object of knowledge is perfect, the knowledge also can be perfect. What Vedanta did, it took the object of knowledge which is perfect in itself. What is it? Brahman. Brahman being the object of knowledge, Brahman being the object of inquiry, which is perfect, the knowledge can be perfect. Knowledge and an ignorant person. Again, I repeat, knowledge and an ignorant person. You can accommodate an ignorant person, but you cannot accept and follow that ignorant person. You can accommodate an ignorant person. Knowledge is not accommodative at all. Knowledge is per se a plain fact. Knowledge doesn't accommodate. Knowledge states the fact as a fact. Knowledge is not accommodative at all. It is opinions that are very accommodative. Knowledge is not accommodative. புரியுதா சொல்றது? தெரியல. For knowledge is about something on which you have no choice. That's what knowledge is. An apple is an apple that has a fixed physical, chemical, biological properties. That's all. You can only understand it. You can only understand it. At the most, you can say, I like it, I don't like it. You can only say, I like it or I don't like it, which is a subject matter of the mind, which is a subject matter of likes and dislikes. Are you able to follow now? Knowledge per se is complete. Knowledge does not accommodate opinions because it is always true to the object of knowledge. The London thinking. He said, why I'm saying all this is to give an example. He says, in the very first paragraph of the practical exercises, he said, very few people know the science of reasoning. Very few people know the science of reasoning. Now, what is that science of reasoning that he is referring to? I'm just giving an example for that. We are not doing a class on reasoning now. He's saying very few know the science of reasoning, and talk to everybody. They think their reasoning is. Talk to everybody. They believe that their reasoning is perfect and correct, which itself is an opinion, which itself becomes an opinion, because knowledge is not accommodative. Knowledge states a fact as a fact. Lastly, you cannot understand it differently. You can imagine it differently. If a rose is red, it is red. You can imagine it to be a violet color. You can imagine, but it is red in color. That's all. That's where they say knowledge is, truth is painful and all that they say, no? Truth is painful, knowledge hurts. Why? Because it doesn't accommodate. It states the truth. Thus, sir, I speak the truth, nobody likes me. You are not speaking the truth. You are just passing your opinions and judgments, and nobody is bothered about your opinions and judgment. Therefore, you get hurt that your opinions are not. You get hurt. People tell me that. I have heard so many people. I'm very simple and straightforward. I follow Vedanta, sir. I'm very simple. I'm very straightforward. I say exactly the truth, and people get hurt. I said, so what? Why are you hurt? Why are you hurt? Because you yourself don't have it as knowledge. It is opinion. What is the difference? Opinion is that which is subject to change. Knowledge is that which is not subject to change. Opinion is that which is subject to change. Knowledge is that which is not subject to change. And in the world, knowledge keeps changing. Now, it is not knowledge that is changing. It is when more and more data comes in, opinions keep changing in the world, which they call as knowledge expansion. They give good words and they delude themselves. They give big words and they delude themselves, which they call as expansion of knowledge expansion. It doesn't. We are not saying it is not expansion of knowledge or anything. At the end of the day, it is an opinion which is subject to change. Brahman, the truth, the Satyam, the reality is the object of knowledge for Vedanta, over which you cannot have any opinion. You may say, you can only say, I don't like it, I don't agree with it. Only that much you can say. But you cannot come in and change the very object. Meaning, the rose is red is red. You can brainwash yourself to believe that it is violet in color, but the truth is it is. But the truth is it is red. Recognizing the knowledge as it is what manana is all about, reflection all about. That is reflection. Ula story edhukku sonnona, what reflection does, and how does this reflection makes you objective? The reflection makes you objective as in the rose is a rose and it will be red in color. But I want a violet rose. What can I do? You can do something. Yeah. You can do grafting. I don't know. Grafting, huh? You can do grafting. You can do something and you can have I had different color roses. I was living in Mysore. I had about, I will come and plant, and my father his job is to take care of everything. I will only like the rose and I will plant it in the garden. Poor man, he has to sit and work for 2.5 hours, 3 hours a day to maintain that garden. I had about 14 types of roses. One smell like a plastic flower. It will look different variety, different things. You can do all that. What is knowledge? Knowledge means something which doesn't. Knowledge means something which doesn't change according to your whims and fancies. Knowledge means that which doesn't suit your whims and fancies. Knowledge means that which doesn't change according to your whims and fancies. not according to your likes and dislikes, not according to your conditionings. It exists as it is. This is objectivity, which is what reflection is supposed to do. So you start the day with reflection. And for reflection, you need material. And for reflection, you need material. And where do you get the material from? The Shastras. You get the material from Shastras. And why do you have to take the material from Shastras? Is because the time given for reflection is what? The booklet he has specified the time for both. For introspection, maximum 6 minutes. For reflection, maximum 90 minutes. And even here, people do exactly what they want to do only. They will not stick to that time. Reflection, they will do the whole day. So the continuous, I just listen. I was listening one lecture after the other lecture, continuously listening. Or continuous introspection. Continuous introspection, morning and evening varaikum. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Practical exercises means when you restrict it to a time and stick to it. That's what makes it practical. Practical means sticking to a time discipline is what practical means. You think practical, no? What do you think? Something which is doable, no? Something which is doable and will produce quick result is what is practical. According to a layperson, according to the general misunderstanding of practical, when you say something is practical, what do you say something is practical? When you say something is practical, what do you mean? It is easily doable and results are faster and quicker. Then only you call it as practical. According to the reality, according to Vedanta, practical means sticking to a time and not exceeding it. Why? On what basis we call this as practical? The basis is this. When you are sticking to your time, you are not allowing your mind to overtake. When you do not stick to a time frame, you are just living by your mind. Class la kuda 8:15 we have to conclude na 8:30. I am so carried away by what I talk. I am so involved in what I talk. I am so carried away by what I talk. What will happen? It is not giving more and more and more and more and more knowledge. It is a simple involvement. So practical means that which doesn't allow the mind to take over, where the mind doesn't become the deciding factor, where the mind is not deciding anything. That is what is called as practical. It means what? For the mind not to take over, the only discipline is sticking to a time. That is where even when you are doing this introspection, time is very important. In reflection also, time is important. Sir, but I like to do this and anyway I don't have anything else to do. Therefore, I sit and do. Are you able to follow? Either I like to do or I don't have anything else to do. I don't have anything else to do. I am exercising for another half an hour. What? You can exercise. What will happen? Third week you will be bedridden. Why? Because you are doing it much above your capacity. You are doing it much above your capacity. You are chewing more than what you can swallow. They say no. You chew more than what you can swallow. Therefore, time discipline is very important in these two disciplines of introspection and reflection. With this intellect, you would be able to go deeper and deeper into your own self. With this intellect, you would be able to go deeper and deeper into your own self. And what is going into deeper into your own self means the next lesson, the waker, the dreamer, the deep sleeper, the states of consciousness. You need some intellect to go deeper into yourself and analyze and understand. And what is going deeper into your own self means analyzing the three states of consciousness that you go through, the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. This is how the lesson moves from 10 to 11, from self-analysis to the states of consciousness. From next week, we will be studying chapter 11, the states of consciousness. I just developed the thought flow and connected how it flows into the next lesson. By this strengthened intellect, by doing these two disciplines of introspection and reflection, you will have a strong intellect. With that strong intellect, you would be able to, you would have become more introvert. And what is it that you have become more introvert means? You can understand your own self in a deeper way. Understanding your own self in a deeper way, the three states of consciousness. Sir, understanding myself in a deeper way, my pluses and minuses, adu veka sambandhapattadhu, only 1/3 of your personality. And you pay so much of attention to the 1/3 of your personality, you don't pay any attention to the dreamer or the deep sleeper at all. So to know yourself means knowing the three states of consciousness. So introvert means going inside. Going inside means knowing the three states of consciousness, and then the pure consciousness which is beyond these three states. This is how the chapter flows from 10 to 11. Next week, we continue with the chapter 11. We start, not continue, we start the states of consciousness. So what is becoming introvert means? Becoming introvert means moving into your own self. Moving into your own self meaning understanding yourself better. And what is understanding yourself better means? The three states of consciousness that you go through. The waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. With this, we conclude for today. And we continue with chapter, the states of consciousness, in the next session. Hari Om.